2018 was a year in video games. That's it. Just a year. Yeah. What is the intro to this video? How about we jump right in? I wanted to start this 2018 nominations video by talking about 2017. Wow. I don't have any qualms with last year's list based on what I had played at the time. However, things have changed. I played a few of the games I missed. No, I still have not finished Nier Automata because I'm an idiot. One of those games was a highly requested one, Hollow Knight. I played it this year when it released, and let me just say, how the fuck did I miss this? It's great. More than just great, it's stellar. Outstanding. I love it. Now, I don't think it beats out Breath of the Wild. That game was mind-blowing in what it achieved. Truly a game of its generation, though I do think I'd probably have to remove something from the nominations list in favor of Hollow Knight. Considering how hard that list was already, it pains me to replace anything, but inevitably I landed at PUBG. I barely ever play it anymore, it hasn't changed much at all, and I'd play Hollow Knight over it in a heartbeat. I'm sure I'll do a video on Hollow Knight eventually, so if you're starving for specific opinions, I'll do that at some point. For now, though, we have a 2018 to talk about. I'll structure this list the same as last year. I will nominate 10 games for Game of the Year, and after I talk about all 10 of them, I'll reveal my favorite at the very end. I put them through a random number generator so the order has no relevance, and thus no bias. First, though, I'll need to make some honorable mentions. Okay, so I actually did like God of War. I know, crazy, right? Upon first finishing it, I thought it would make the nominations, but I've had a lot of time to let it all sink in. While I love the story of Kratos and Atreus, the gameplay only shines through its combat system. It has a serviceable feedback loop and not much else. I'd say this game felt like a junk food game with a good story and visuals. I was enjoying it in the moment, but it's not exactly a game that prompts further retries or even much thought after the fact. The combat was enjoyable, my favorite part was hunting down Valkyries, but I didn't like the main progression structure. It reminded me of Skyward Sword in the ways you're constantly prevented from climbing that damn mountain. It had Uncharted level set pieces, sometimes it even went beyond since it had mystical creatures and gods to pull out of its ass. I'd call God of War very flashy without much substance, ironic given the franchise it resides within and tries to forget much of the time. I'm sold on the sequel, like me more Norse mythology. I just can't in good conscience call this a game of the year after reflecting on how little there is to actually do within the game that's engaging. Far from bad, but nothing exceptional. Ever since Dragon Quest XI came out, I've been making my way through it gradually at my own pace, and it's been a fun experience. I'm far from finished with it, but the fact that I got as far as I did even though I used to feel pretty ambivalent toward turn-based JRPGs says a lot. It's a beautiful game, uses Toriyama's art really well, and relaxes me on most levels. Whenever I'm feeling bored, it's a nice game to switch on for a few hours and fight slimes or whatever. Gamble in the casino, hell if I know. Nothing about the story is spectacular, nor are the characters anything special really, it's just a game I like playing. Hard to explain more than that, which is why it's definitely not one of my definitive games of 2018, but it's also hard to deny that it gave me a lot of pleasure. I'll likely still be making my way through it in 2019, but unless it pulls some left-field gameplay and story twists, it will stay an honorable mention for surprising me at the very least. Alright, so this one is an honorable mention because I had a lot of fun with it, but it's only a demo. I love Undertale to death, and Deltarune did not disappoint. I can't wait for the full game whenever that will be. It works as a more specific satire of RPG tropes and twists the gameplay core of Undertale on its head by making your choices feel meaningless. It's kinda interesting that nowadays having none of your choices matter feels subversive in its own way. It has a great cast of lovable characters, new and old, and the music tends to surpass the original. The battle theme is absolutely outstanding, right up there with Versus Suzy, Field of Hopes and Dreams, Chaos King, and The World Revolving. I have this inner debate between Ralsei and Suzy as to who I like more. Suzy has a small redemption arc that I dig, but Ralsei is just so wholesome. Wholesome enough to spawn his own meme subcategory. There's not a whole lot else I can say other than, shit's great, if you liked Undertale you'll like this, and I hope we get that sequel soon, Toby, you sly fox. Now we're on to the real contenders, the nominations for my Game of the Year. These are the games that resonated with me the most, the ones I consider high enough to be my game of the year. They each displayed something within them to stand out. So, how about we jump right in with the first nomination? Pokémon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Oh boy, alright, so I made a video called The Lost Art of Catching 'em All, in which I brought up some of my concerns with the series and how Let's Go could potentially fix them. This just in, I was right, only if you agreed with me in the first place though. Let's Go invigorated the series in all the right ways. Pokémon are now encounterable on the overworld and catchable without wild battles. Captures give you experience and reframe the act of grinding into a collecting minigame. Its focus was once again back to collecting, with the original 151 acting as a springboard for this revised sense of focus. I don't think this new prerogative was damaging to the core of the series' appeal either. You'd think it would be easier if it was attempting to dumb down the mechanics, but I made a team that seemed to struggle at every turn. And now, since I don't need to fight every single trainer to stay ahead of the pack, I was slightly underleveled. This sense of customization to each and every Pokémon is not lost here. You can create any team you want for an organic sense of difficulty. I picked a Kingler for my team and he didn't do a whole lot for me, but he shined in some surprising areas. It's not as if the AI were pulling punches either. The champion starts off the fight with a mega evolved Pidgeot that knows Heat Wave to protect against ice types. That's insane. My point here is this: Let's Go was bold enough to try new things, and I think it worked out for the best. I'm not sure what Gen 8 will pilfer from this experiment, or if it will even pilfer anything. I love the idea of encountering Pokemon in the wild, and I love the focus on catching to gain experience rather than battling brain-dead enemy trainers. Let's Go was a spark the series may have needed, and I'm curious to see where the series goes from here. Look, even if we disagree here, I just want what's best for the series, and I'm glad that finally it's trying something new after several generations of stagnation. Next up, we have The Messenger. I made no secret as to how much I loved what this game did in my video. I love the various twists present in The Messenger, even if it didn't always execute everything it tried to do extraordinarily well. You have to admit that it was at least surprising that it managed to cram both an action platformer and a Metroidvania under the same roof. You don't see that every day. That's precisely why I chose it for consideration. It's just an unusually funny and novel game. It may not have mixed well all the time, but it fit enough that I don't often find myself complaining. It has a really tight set of main mechanics and a really well thought out map made out of solid individual action platforming levels. It just had this on top of discoverable secrets and even discoverable levels, adding more depth to what was already a fantastic Ninja Gaiden inspired action platformer. I know not everyone was a fan of the twist, and I can understand that, but at the very least, The Messenger stands out among so many other 2D Renaissance platformers because it tried something bold. I appreciate that, and will continue to appreciate it for years to come as I continually travel back and perfect my skills. I seriously can't wait for the sequel they teased. This next one was a surprise, but if you've watched my video, you'd already know that. Octopath Traveler is a game I never, in a million years, expected to like. In fact, I was one of its vocal detractors since it was announced. I just couldn't care less about a game attempting to emulate a bunch of older RPGs that I could never stomach. Lo and behold, I was greeted with an outstanding soundtrack, a lovable cast of characters, a relaxing D&D style of open progression, and a well-considered combat system. I could not put this game down, and though I played it less and less as the months came and life got busier, I never stopped thinking about the times I did have with it, the times I could still have with it, furthering the stories of this ragtag group, learning more about them, watching them grow, sitting for hours staring at this gorgeous pop-up art style that mixes so well with the pixel art. I said a lot of what I needed to say about it already in my video. If you haven't seen it yet, I definitely recommend it. I am happy to say I was extremely wrong about Octopath Traveler. It did get a little more grindy after I published that video, but nothing that would keep me away from it. This is certainly the best JRPG I've played in a long time, and if you're looking for something more challenging than Pokemon this year, Octopath Traveler will deliver. Don't you worry. God, this soundtrack is so good. Here's a fairly late addition. Return of the Obra Dinn, a detective game where you solve a list of 60 murders and disappearances. You do this by writing names and causes in books, hoping to connect the dots by observing the moments they all died. Initially, this game is very overwhelming, handing you a book full of pages and information. I was actually a little scared at first, since even though I'm a sucker for complicated puzzles, this almost seemed beyond my feeble mind. However, as you watch the deaths put some of the initial pieces together, it gradually becomes more feasible. You find out that the captain shot his daughter's brother, and so you use that information to fill in the blanks. The guy who died in the beginning is the captain's son, who is the brother of this girl. Of course, you know who the girl is, who the captain is, and who the first death is. You have 3 people, they're registered as correct logs, and you can use that definite information as references for the rest of the list. Think of this game as a huge, elaborate puzzle box. It's an extraordinarily complex detective game, dare I say the best detective game ever made. That feeling when you reach the end with a full book of people and deaths, you feel like goddamn Sherlock Holmes, it's excellent. Not to mention it has a unique art style that kinda reminds me of the original Game Boy. I haven't seen much else like it, to be frank. Don't let it pass you by, it will seriously test your puzzle-solving mettle. Moving on to Monster Hunter World. I remember being introduced to Monster Hunter back with 3 Ultimate on the Wii U, and though I skipped over many of the games in between, I hopped back on with World in a heartbeat. It wasn't that I disliked 3 Ultimate, it's just that I kinda fell off the proverbial wagon. It was a tough time in my life and I sorta forgot about it. I'm not sure exactly what prompted me to jump back on the bandwagon with World, but I'm glad I did. Almost everything about World is a step up from the games of old, except maybe in monster quantity and variety. It has a much better sense of immersion thanks to many of its new dynamic systems. I love how different monsters can come crash the party now. The visual fidelity is insane coming off the previous games that mostly stuck to the same engine, and it's allowed for some insane environment and monster designs. Slaying monsters has simply never felt better. It carries that traditional Monster Hunter feedback loop to new heights. I played it an unholy amount, and though I've since fallen off a bit, you just can't argue with the amount of time I put in, and the amount of fun I got out of it. If jumping onto the back of a giant dragon and ripping into it with my switch axe was still fun 100 hours later, I think the game is doing something dangerously right. Here's another surprise, Marvel's Spider-Man, or Spider-Man PS4, or Insomniac Spider-Man. Hey, why don't we pick titles that aren't fucking confusing, please? I love basically everything this game does. Going into it, I was certainly hesitant. Given the pedigree of most Spider-Man video games, I wondered why so many people had expectations for this new game. What was there to ensure that it would even be good? Insomniac has done some good in the past, but nowadays they seem to have lost a lot of their luster, if the Ratchet reboot is anything to go by. Who's to say anyone on the team is still even there? Basically, Insomniac being involved wasn't enough to sell me immediately. What we ended up getting was the best Spider-Man game to date. Not a glorified web-swinging tech demo, a full-fledged game with a brilliant character arc for Peter, Miles, MJ, Aunt May, basically everyone. The ending made me cry, okay? I loved it. I love Peter's delivery by Yuri Lowenthal. I'm a little sad he didn't win at the Game Awards. As far as I'm concerned, his voice is the only voice I want to hear out of Spider-Man from now on. While it borrows a lot of combat similarities from Arkham, it fits them into the Spidey mold. Spider-Man feels quite fragile. You can't take more than 3 or 4 hits at once without being launched into oblivion, and his animations are really quick. It forces a more deliberate combat approach, and I enjoyed that, however surface level it may have been. The web swinging has a nice rhythm to it, and maintaining that rhythm through correctly timed button presses is part of the appeal. Insomniac fundamentally understood what makes Spider-Man fun, in both a gameplay sense and a narrative one. This is one of the greatest Spider-Man stories ever told, with his best villain incarnations. I love it to death. What do I even say? Yakuza is a series I've come to love fairly recently. I played 0 at the end of last year, and 2018 has been a struggle to keep up with the series so I could finally play the 6th installment. I had it sitting on my shelf for the entire damn year, but finally in late November I caught up. I was able to experience Yakuza 6 in all of its glory and was not disappointed. This time, however, I was able to enjoy it from an alternate perspective. See, I loved 0 as a newcomer, someone who knew absolutely nothing about the series. It made some of the twists of the later games hit even harder. However, Yakuza 6 is coming from someone who caught up, someone who has now played all of the numbered games in the series and has followed Kiryu through thick and thin. Okay, technically I skipped 3, but does anyone really blame me for that one? I'll go back eventually, alright? I just really wanted to understand what was going on. This is Kiryu's final chapter, and it did not disappoint. I may have missed the alternate playstyles that the other characters brought to the table, but since I love Kiryu so much, it didn't bother me one bit. Hiroshima is a beautiful new locale, the side missions are as ridiculous as they've ever been, graphically it looks absolutely fucking beautiful, and the music hits in only the places it needs to. The combat is fun, though that's never really been my favorite part of the series, and this is no exception. Your punches carry a lot more weight, but I often found myself confused as to just what the appeal of the combat is supposed to be in general. I've never really found beat-em-up combat systems super appealing, but it's certainly a serviceable system to get me where I want to go, to convey a ridiculous yet heavy-hitting story about an old Yakuza struggling to fit into the modern world. Though it's the end of Kiryu's story, I hope this is not the end for Kamurocho. This one almost flew right by me. Iconoclasts. I was sent a review code for this random Metroidvania I'd honestly never heard of and decided to do a video on a whim. I'm still not sure why I even played it. Everything about it rang a fair bit generic, especially the visuals, but I decided to check it out. There really is no other reason than I was bored one day. I was greeted with a well-designed Metroidvania that had an intriguing story, one that got me thinking long after I put it down. I go more into that stuff in the video I did a while back, but trust me when I say that it's a story I haven't seen told in many other places. One that isn't afraid to pull its punches, to not give happy endings. I almost don't even want to go further, since I know it's a fact this game fell under the radar for so many people, and I want everyone to give it a go. It's a Metroidvania at its core, with a focus on puzzles rather than combat. That isn't to say combat doesn't exist, more that your items and arsenal are more useful for puzzles. A little bit like Zelda. I love this soundtrack, it backs up the harder hitting portions of the story while still managing to kick ass on its own. Might be one of the best soundtracks this year, I'm still undecided on that one. Look, there's not a whole lot I can say without spoiling it. I love this game a hell of a lot. Go watch my video where I explain why in more depth, and please, please play this game. I promise you will like it. I slept on this next one for a long time. Celeste. I slept on it not because I didn't like the game, but because I needed breaks in between the ludicrously challenging levels. I completed all the B-sides, all the C-sides. I haven't yet gone back to do the golden strawberries because this game is just keeps going on and on. I don't say this in a condescending way, don't get me wrong. I love how the challenge just keeps building. It doesn't stop going even when you've reached the top of the mountain. It keeps asking more and more from you, and because of that, it's the first game to ever make me take several breaks in between my accomplishments to savor them. It has such a simple set of mechanics, but it makes up for that by crafting levels that take advantage of everything you could possibly do with them. It has the audacity to not even teach you some of the mechanics until the final C-side, at which point you'll be so well versed in the game's vocabulary that you'll wonder why it's still teaching you new moves, until you realize that it's because you're not done. You can beat these levels in a faster time, you can do it all without dying on the way, right? It's extraordinary and fits well with the theme of overcoming adversity, anxiety, and other mental demons. It knows that sometimes it's hard to keep going and sympathizes with you in a non-condescending way. Assist mode is there to help the uninitiated, to ensure that everyone can get into the game no matter what they're plagued with, so that everyone can appreciate how well designed it is, how well written the characters are, how kick-ass the soundtrack is. Everyone is welcome, but it still tests everyone. It tasks them all with climbing the mountain their own way, conquering their own adversities their own way. Whether you do it on your own terms or with assistance, there is no wrong way up. You just have to find the way that's best for you. If that ain't a successful life metaphor, I don't know what is. Finally, we end on Hitman 2. I still own the original Hitman, and I tried to get around to it to no avail. I waited so long that the second game dropped, and I figured I'd just jump on the boat now and try the old levels later since they're included in the second game anyway. I found myself enthralled by the level design. That's kind of the sole reason it's on the list. The levels are just so good. They remind me of Dishonored in the sense that there are so many different ways to go about eliminating your targets. It's down to how you approach, what disguise you use to get there, what weapon you use to get the job done. The levels have a large number of opportunities, and an almost infinite number of ways to get the job done. It promotes a thorough inspection of each level and keeps you coming back to try new and devilish ways to kill your targets. Maybe next time you can go unnoticed, kill only your targets, and find all the secrets hidden within each of the crevices. I remember finding a hidden area underground, but I still haven't found out how to lure my target underground. I really want to make him walk into the trap lasers though. It's a goofy game where briefcases home in on targets when you throw them, and since Hitman 2 has all of Hitman 1's levels, there is a breadth of content available. I can get lost in some of these levels, and that's goddamn dangerous. Keep me away from this game if you want more videos, because sometimes while I'm scripting, I'd rather just go explore more levels. Hot damn, Hitman, where have you been all my life? Alas, we have reached the end. So many of these games spoke to me for so many reasons. Level design, story, music, a cohesive theme. Which one of them, though, managed to impress me the most? Which one of them delivered on what they set out to do the best? Which one left me thinking, left me wanting more? Basically, which game was my favorite? For any list of reasons, which one resonated with me the most? This year wasn't as hectic as last year, there aren't as many heavy hitters. I loved my time with all the games I played this year, but making the list wasn't as hard as it once was. However, picking my favorite was hard for the opposite reason. I wasn't sure what game left an impact on me. Last year I felt like too many games made an impact on me, so it was hard to choose one over them all. And this year it was hard to choose one because I just didn't know. So I thought long and hard about it, I played most of them over again, at least a little bit, I deliberated for days, until I came to my conclusion. I arrived at this conclusion late in the year, but it was a pretty important realization I made while playing through it for catch-up. Something I hadn't realized before, something I'd simply overlooked. This game, like many others, was attempting to prove itself to its players, to teach them something valuable. I found myself continually getting behind that idea, chasing after its ideals, until it dawned on me. This game was teaching me something about myself, something I haven't been willing to admit until now, something I wasn't willing to acknowledge until now, and not only did it help me realize it, it's currently helping me find a way out of it. It's nothing special really, I have depression. It hasn't been diagnosed, I haven't seen anyone to diagnose it, but I know I have it. And I've likely known for a long time even if I didn't want to admit it. I don't come out of bed sometimes, I sit and think about the end of days, and I definitely don't see sunlight as often as I should. I don't really know what I'm doing most of the time. I'm just aimlessly heading toward an unknown objective, trying to make sense of life as much as I can before it's all over. It scares me, keeps me awake at night sometimes, and I find myself isolated more than I'd like to be. I wasn't willing to accept or deal with it until I played Celeste. This isn't hyperbole. Celeste did something to me. It's a metaphor for overcoming life's struggles, that much is obvious. You climb a mountain, Madeline embraces her deepest anxieties in order to clear that mountain, but that was precisely what made me realize I have a problem. This game got me celebrating so many little victories through extraordinary hardship. The challenges in Celeste are some of the hardest single platforming actions I've ever partaken in. Some of the hardest shit I've ever had to do. I was so happy when I cleared that final seaside, when I said to myself, ha, I mastered you and everything you have to offer. But you know, I didn't really master Celeste, because Celeste is a game that never ends. Even after you deal with the deepest, darkest sides of yourself, life goes on. The game goes on. It taught me something valuable. Life is hard. Sometimes it feels unknowingly hard. Trying to dig myself out of the pit I've fallen into will be equally hard. Some days I wonder if I can even do it. But little by little, I have to try, right? I have to keep going. I have to celebrate the little victories. I have to inch my way to true happiness. And once I do, I'll be ready. I'll be ready to brave the rest of life once again. I just have to have hope. I have to keep going. No matter how insane life gets, no matter how hard the tasks come, life keeps going, and I won't be left behind.